It's almost game time. We're getting closer and closer to the Philadelphia Union returning to action after the bye week as they are getting ready to take on RSL, Real Salt Lake, this weekend. I'm Renee Washington, joined by my incredible co-host always, JP Zapata, and we've got a great guest from you joining on behalf of RSL, ready to weigh in on all things going on with one of the top teams in the West. It is none other than Hayden Nielsen, who does a fantastic job covering the team and just making sure to give you guys all the latest and up to date with Royal Riot. Hayden, so nice to have you here to get into this matchup this weekend. It's looking like it's going to be, we've got the last undefeated team in the MLS in the Philadelphia Union versus one of the top teams with the leading goal scorer in Real Salt Lake. And I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for this test for both teams. I'm going to start with a softball question for you because I'd like to know more about what this matchup means on the other side. What is this team looking like so far? They're right in the thick of things in the conference. They're winning games. They're scoring goals. Again, like I mentioned, you've got a leading goal scorer. You've got all the pieces there. Talk us through the start of this MLS season for Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. Happy to be here and happy to talk about Real Salt Lake. And to answer your question, I mean, this couldn't be really a better start. We have a team who is hungry for wins. We have a very young team. I mean, you'll see it. We'll talk about it. But we have, in my opinion, the best young players this league has to offer. So I'll say that right now. I think we have some of the best, and I think we have the league's MVP on this roster. So I think we have a very good team, and it's been a very fun start to the season. We had that opener at Miami that was interesting way to start the season, and then after, I feel like we calmed down from that a little bit and we're able to get into the actual season. It's been a good season so far.
Absolutely. Let's look with that narrative a little bit. So for a little bit of context here, Hayden, I kind of been watching RSL rise since Mike Pecky left there. Over the past couple of years, you guys have been in a steady incline here, right? And to this point where this year, I personally think you guys will be one of those final four teams. I don't know. We'll see about MLS Cup, but for the RSL side, the RSL perspective, what are the expectations? Because it does feel it's the highest it's been in a long time.
Yeah, so, I mean, Mike Petke came and went. Then we had Horace, who also came and then went. And RSL has traditionally always been a good, not great club. Outside of the 2008-9 to 2014 season, they were really great. That was our golden years. And it feels like we're getting back into that. RSL last summer brings in our record transfer. I mean, just to start off, in the winter of 2023, we get new ownership. We get Ryan Smith Entertainment Group, David Blitzer. They come in, and
we know them very well.
Yeah, that's when things really started to change. We get new ownership. We were in a really rocky place with the prior ownership. A lot of scandals. We got our NWSL team relocated because of that ownership. And this new ownership has really brought the club back to life in Utah. And they started off by making a splash, bringing in several players. I mean, they broke our transfer record with Andres Gomez for around $4 million. And then within 6 months, they did it again with Chicho, around $7 million. So these past couple years this past year and a half, I should really say, have been extremely exciting. And this year, we do have a great team, and I don't know. It's just really fun to watch. If you watch it out in Utah, I mean, we're packing the stadium, and they can't really win at home that often, but we're trying to figure out the home stuff. But on the road, we are a dominant road team. That's where we get our wins.
Well, that's tough, but going on the road this weekend. But I will say one of the things I enjoy that JP and I have been doing through our PHOI Union preview shows is to have a chance to speak with people that are actively covering the teams of our opponents. It's interesting to learn what's going on behind the scenes outside of just box scores and results,
right?
What's going on behind the scenes. And you mentioned the investment that's being made to get this team to a point where they are absolutely a true contender to win it all. I mean, it's still April. It's very early, obviously. But realistically, with the talent that you have, you mentioned Chicho. I know that's your guy, JP, but also fellow Colombian, but also the youth, the changes that have been made, the money that's been spent. has really allowed this team to take major strides from even last season to this season. What are you seeing that's really helping be the backbone and the identity of what RSL brings to the pitch that allows them to translate that investment financially and everything else into playing good soccer?
Yeah, I think everyone's bought in to the Pablo Mastroeni mindset where, you know, the one thing that he's always gotten some slack on is his tactics. But the thing that nobody could ever challenge is that he's a mental coach, where you can go into Seattle in a playoff road game and you can advance without taking a single shot. Not just a shot on goal, but we didn't take a single shot and we advanced on penalties. That's the kind of mentality that this team has really had from the get-go with Pablo, and there has been some lows and there has been some highs, but Pablo will get his guys ready to play. Now, tactically, they have it figured out, and the identity of this team is a team that's going to press you hard. I mean, if you watch any of our games this year, you'll see a team that is going to come out and they're going to try to cause troubles for your back line. Philadelphia has a really good back line, so I don't think it will do as much as it did against Chicago, whose back line is about as opposite as you can get with Philadelphia. But that's kind of the identity that you'll see. You'll see players, any player that's on the pitch is going to be there because they work hard for it. Pablo doesn't put guys there because they expect to be there. Andres Gomez sat on the bench for a while last season. It took a lot of work for him to even get playing. And he, again, was a record transfer. He was a $4 million guy. That doesn't happen with RSL very often. So price tag or whatever have you doesn't automatically earn you a spot in Pablo's lineup. And that's, I think, has really shown where the team has bought into that mentality. And yeah, we'll go more into that with players, but Diego Luna, I mean, if you watch his goal last week, he scores and the first guy he runs over is Pablo. He talks this season how he's had a really tough start to the season. He struggled with mental health and he had high expectations going into the season. Everyone does. He's one of the league's brightest young players and he started off slow and he still has a mentality to come off the bench and work his butt off. So I think that's really when you say, what's the identity of this team? It's a team that's going to outwork the others.
It should be a lot of fun when you're talking about a Philadelphia team that plays with that blue collar mentality. I can't wait for that Saturday. But we were actually making this joke before I get to my next question. We were making this joke, Hayden. So what a lot of people don't realize, the last time Philly and RSL played was almost 5 years ago. All right, July 19th. We're taking it all the way back to July 19th, July 13th, 2019. The Union walked into Rio Tinto and got shellacked 4-0. 2 goals by Jefferson Savarino, 1 by Albert Rusnak, and 1 by Damir Kreilach. So I remember that vividly. It was a late night one. It was not a lot of fun. That is for sure. But speaking of goals, I want to stay on to that attack there of RSL. Renee talked about Chicho Arango. It's a really dangerous attack. Right now, you guys are tied for 5th in goals scored in the Western Conference, which has a lot of good attacks. I want to talk what makes this attack so dangerous. Talk about characteristics or just these players in general. What makes it so dangerous there, Hayden?
Yeah, so something that they've really been trying to implement this year is attacking through the middle. The past 2 years, we've been really dependent on attacking with the wings. You'll still see that a lot. We attack with our wings a ton, but we have been trying to play up the middle. Crooks is our new 10, came from Middlesbrough from the championship. He's still figuring it out, hasn't really put up any eye-popping stats yet, but has a hard work ethic. And then on the sides, this week, I believe that we will be seeing Andres Gomez, who's 21. He's off to a fantastic start, 3 goals, 3 assists on the year. One of the bigger, brighter stars, young Colombian player. He got his chance to play with Colombia in the offseason. And then you got on the other side, I'm guessing it'll be Fidel Barajas again because Pablo doesn't like to tinker with something once it works. So I'm assuming we'll see Fidel Barajas, young. He just barely turned 18 like 2 weeks ago. And he is going to be one of the brighter stars for Mexico. Or if he switches, he might choose U.S., but I'm going to assume he stays with Mexico. He's going to be one of Mexico's biggest stars pretty soon here. And he's already off to a very fast start. He has 2 assists I believe already. He should have had his first goal last week, just pulled it wide. And then, of course, you got Chicho. 14 out of the 15 goals that we have scored have had Chicho in impact, either a goal or assist. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy. We've only had one goal this season that Chicho wasn't a part of it. And we don't score if he's not a part of it. So that's the biggest key is right there. I mean, with the entire attack, it really relies around Chicho right now.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot of similarities, absolutely, between these two teams. As I'm hearing you talk more and more about RSL as we gear up for that matchup Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. at Subaru Park. Because similarly, a lot does run through Julian Carranza and the attack for the Union. Now, I won't say it's 14 out of 15 goals. It's not as much as what the impact that Chicho's had, but he's absolutely the guy that's been leading the attack. Daniel Gazag's been improving and has been the leading scorer over the last few seasons, continues to be that. And then, as you mentioned, defensively, very organized, which helps RSL be able to, get in behind, create, combine, and get forward against Chicago. That hopefully is not the case for the Union, especially if they can keep their defense organized. They are still working through some hiccups. Andre Blake, starting goalkeeper, has been injured. Their back line's been tinkering with some different looks and different ways they roll out even their starting 11. So I'm curious to know, within all these strengths, especially with them looking to attack down the middle, what is an area that's been something that they've struggled with? If going into this matchup, what is it, whether it's defensively or even in their attack, that you feel like is one of the almost weaknesses for RSL, especially against a team like the Union that they could possibly exploit?
This season, RSL hasn't shown a specific weakness yet. I mean, goals allowed, we are tied for first, I guess, in the West, I believe.
Right.
So we're not really allowing many goals. Now, what you'll notice in this one is we will most likely be starting two fullbacks at center back. If you look at our lineup from last week, Justin Glad and Brian Barrow were both out. I don't think it makes sense to play either of them in this game against Philadelphia, simply because it's not really worth it to risk them coming back from injury when the next month for RSL is extremely important. We have, I think, 5 or 6 Western Conference opponents that we play. So that month is extremely important for RSL to be healthy for it. So what I think you'll see in the back is Andrew Brody, who has had his ups and his downs. He's probably the most critiqued player for Real Salt Lake on that left side. That right side is Andrew Brody. And then you'll probably have Bodie Hidalgo, who originally is a forward at center back. But he played great. I mean, he got a shutout with Chicago. And then Oviedo, who's originally a left back. And then you got Alex Catranes, who has been fantastic to start this season. So that's what you'll expect to see across the back line. I would be very surprised if Brian Vera or Justin Glad played in this one. So that's where the weakness could be, because it's going to be a makeshift back line.
Interesting. That's that two full or what you're just playing with four fullbacks back there. That's very interesting for Saturday night there. I want to go back to Pablo real quick, your manager, Pablo Mastroeni. So, and just analyzing real quick. So, ironically enough, you managed for your Riot and played for your rival.
Yeah.
Back in 2014 through 2017. Ironically, in his third season now with RSL, he has one more win in his 3 seasons that he managed Colorado Rapids there. Now, granted, those Rapids team were poorly constructed as far as the squad wise, but what has changed? What has changed for him now? Like, why is it working now with RSL compared to possibly with his time with the Rapids?
I think a lot of it has to do with investment. I mean, Real Salt Lake's invested over $18 million into this roster right now. That's got to be one of the top spending in the league. So he's getting a lot of work, and then it wasn't really working as well as obviously the ownership and front office wanted it to last year. They let go of his entire coaching staff and replaced it. So all of the coaches outside of Pablo this year are new, from goalkeeper coach to any of the assistants. So there were question marks around the coaching. Now, there's been some Pablo Haters, I would say. I've been on the Pablo hater
Mm.
train at times. So, I mean, it's been a very up and down going for him. So, we'll kind of see. But I think a lot of it is he's got a team that the front office did a really good job for building around him, building guys that want to be here. Jefferson Savarino, obviously a great player, didn't want to really show up and work. So, we sold him.
Mhm.
That's a big piece is we only are going to play players that want to play here.
Interesting. So definitely a lot of caveats to RSL, and even looking at
Mhm.
their success and kind of like peeling back the layers in finding out that, in addition to the talent and the youth that's stepping up, and Chicho's ability to score and lead the league in so many ways and lead the team in so many ways, they are still dealing with some maybe conflict of pressure, it sounds like. And I know the Union actually are in a similar boat where it feels like this season there is a little bit more pressure to, you know, get further, to win more games, to be a top team, to get deeper into the
Mhm.
playoffs. Definitely to,
Right.
of course, win hardware because they've fallen short. And I'm guessing with RSL having so much new and dealing with some rifts recently, that there might even be some pressure to show that it was for the best. These moves, letting cutting ties or bringing someone in, whatever it may be, was for the best to allow them to be a top team in the MLS. So interestingly enough, it also sounds like this matchup is going to be a game that's maybe RSL's not at 100%, especially with having center backs out. It's always important to have down the middle your guys. That maybe the Union can capitalize a little bit on an injury-bitten RSL squad and attack, put some goals away
Right.
early. So I'm like even more excited for this matchup now after having this conversation with you, Hayden, because it's again very similar issues, to be honest, but also two very talented teams that are getting a nice early season test in this matchup.
Right. And I do want to be clear, the fan base is all in on Pablo right now.
Mhm.
The fan base is all in on this team. And two players that I haven't mentioned yet, and they are the most underrated players on this team, but it is, you could argue that they have been the best players on this team, is the two midfielders, Brian Ojeda and Emeka Eneli. Those two have been rocks on this team. You won't hear about them. They will very rarely get on the stat sheet, but they
Right.
are the reason that RSL aren't giving up very many goals. You'll see it on Saturday, but as soon as Philadelphia wins the ball, one of those two will be attacking them right away, and they'll win the ball back a lot. RSL has bested the midfield in almost every game this year, and when they haven't been able to, that's when they've struggled. So against Miami, obviously, I think that was a lot of just shock because we were playing Miami, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
build up to that one because it was our first game of the season and everything like that. In the second half of that game, we played terrific, um, and we just were unlucky to score. So that's what I think is it's really going to come down to: can the midfield protect those center backs because they're new. They haven't played very much together, and we'll see if it's McMath or Beavers in the goal.
Mm.
Ah, you set up my next question because I have to ask. This man was a fan favorite here. This still is. A lot of Union fans still like to follow the career path of Zach McMath. Man, how's he
Of
been
course,
lately?
McMath has been awesome this season. Last season, I mean, just a little backstory. Gavin Beavers is 18 years old. He is sorry, I'm just plugging in my phone here.
You're good.
Gavin
Oh,
Beavers is one of the next up and coming goalies for the U.S. men's national team. Everyone's excited about him. And last season, it was really like, okay, Zach McMath will start the season, and then we'll have Beavers come in and replace him sometime. We're not sure when because we don't want to rush him. McMath didn't let him. McMath was terrific last season. He didn't let him come in. He was too good to replace. And this season, he's been amazing. He only has one shutout, I believe, against Columbus, but he has been fantastic to start this year. He's been one of the better goalkeepers in the league this season. Beaver's also great. He got his first career shutout last week against Chicago. Although I do think that was more of just scheduled. They did say they want to get Beaver some game time this year. I don't think that they'll have him playing against Philadelphia. I think they wanted him against a little bit easier matchup with Chicago. So with Philadelphia, I'm sure we'll see McMath, and I'm sure McMath wants to play in this one, playing against his former team.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So we've got two teams that like to high press. Both teams work through some goalie questions, and definitely teams that are very savvy, which, as you mentioned, the midfield matchup should be the difference. Typically it is, especially in a game like this. The Union do often get out possessed, which probably will happen again this weekend, but are a team that works to win the ball back and look to get out in transition and, look to attack and unbalance you. So my last question for you, Hayden, and I gotta end the preview show with this. What are your predictions for this matchup Saturday night? What do you have as the score? But what do you anticipate will happen, especially knowing a little bit more maybe now about the Union, but also knowing where RSL is currently in this part of April?
Yeah, the Union are a tough team. Obviously, last team standing without a loss. That's got to end sometime. I don't think it's going to happen this week, though. I think RSL, while they are a great road team, I think that they will get a draw on the road. So I think we're going to get maybe a 1-1 draw. I think this is going to be low scoring. While we both have talked about the attacking prowess of both teams. Both teams are good at attacking. I think there will be a pretty heavy emphasis with RSL on defense this weekend. From what I've seen this season, RSL has been able to dictate a lot of the games. So I think that they will be able to control this one a little bit, or at least enough. I don't know if we're going to see some rotation. This one is one that makes sense for a guy like Chicho to rest. He's played every minute outside of 6 this season. So it would make sense to rest him against an Eastern Conference opponent on the road against a tough team that you probably weren't going to win anyways. But if he plays, RSL has a fantastic shot. Even if he doesn't play, we've got some good players. So I'm going to say that Fidel Barajas is going to start. He's going to get his first RSL and MLS goal in a 1-1 draw. And then I'll just say, let's say Carranza. Let's say he gets on the score sheet.
Super specific. I love it.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely. One thing to note, though, for us, we are coming off a bye week. I'm curious to see how we do bounce here in a bye, because we were playing really well leading up to that. Gazak was playing really high. I mean, Carranza, he's been really on all season. Quinn Sullivan's, like we talk about on the show, has been one of the most consistent players on the squad. But Renee, who I'm looking at for a big game here, was talking about listening Hayden talking about that RSL back line. But, this kind of sets up now, granted, we'll see how the plantar fasciitis is doing, but this kind of sets up for an UWA game. Using that body, using that soccer IQ, I think that this is one of those matches that could bode well for UWA. We'll see.
Do you have a prediction then, JP?
I'll go. You know what? I'll go with the draw. I'll go with the 2-2 draw. I don't know who RSL is gonna. I listen. Hey, Chicho's gonna. He's gonna get one in front of me. Of course, he's gonna be like, "Parcero, aquí está tu gol." I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna get a brace. I think UWA gets a goal. I think UWA gets a goal, and I'm gonna go Quinny. Quinny's gonna get a goal here as well. I got a 2-2 draw.
You guys are raising the bar here. I actually did feel like this could be a draw, because the Union, although unbeaten, it's because they have been getting ties, that they've been squeezing out games, coming back from down by 2. And I also don't know how the Union, as you mentioned, JP, are going to come back off of the bye week. They might come back fresh and shot out of the cannon and look great, but they might also come back a little bit flat after having a week off, because we know it's routine for these guys. A break is good, but sometimes it's detrimental. So I am excited to see this matchup, especially because we've been seeing a progression for the Union that we've talked about on the show, where the attack's getting better. As you mentioned, Quinn, Mikel, Daniel Gazdag, Julian has always been steady, but we're seeing more and more guys getting their confidence up, contributing. The defense is finally getting sorted out and much more organized and getting back to what they've been. So I'm going to go 2-1 to be different. Goal scores, I don't know, because you guys are really challenging me here. But Chicho's got to be involved somehow in a goal. If he plays, he's helping to set up a goal, whether he's the scorer or the facilitator. He's helping to get the goal. For the Union, I can definitely see maybe Daniel Gazdag getting another one, and it might be a surprise score. Maybe not that much of a surprise. Maybe like a guy off the bench late in the game is going to get like the game winner, like a Chris Donovan or something. That's going to come in as a late substitution and bring some fresh legs and
Maybe
get that
this one has
lead.
a center back goal in it. I mean, Philadelphia's got some big center backs, and
Yes.
when you're if Philadelphia has that many set pieces off of corners or any free kicks,
That's a good
those big
point.
center backs
Good
have a
point.
huge advantage over RSL not having center backs.
Yeah.
So
They
maybe
do
a center back
have
goal.
that is one of the reasons why the Union scores so many set piece goals. You have the ability
Mhm.
to bring up a Damian Lowe, Jack Elliott, Jacob Glesnes, Nate Harriel,
Yeah.
that can get in, and then Kai Wagner drops the ball in perfectly. That could be the late game winning goal. Maybe it's a late corner. They're sending everybody up and they score, but definitely the good thing about this game with it being April, and as you alluded to, Hayden, is for RSL, much like the Union, still a lot to figure out. Still trying to finalize that identity. You don't want to be peaking now anyways in the season. And so I'm looking forward to seeing for both teams how they match up and how this game goes, because it is a good test of two of the top teams in the league and in their respective conferences. But Hayden, we appreciate you so much. Anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up here?
I just want to say, Renee, these guys keep getting better and better. Hayden, you were awesome. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me come on and talk RSL. I mean, it's a fun season. We got, you said it's early, it's April, but the MVP hype train is starting out here in Salt Lake. We don't get MVP candidates very often, if ever. So having a guy who's, I mean, everyone over here would argue he's the early front runner over a guy like Messi. It's a fun time to be out here.
Especially being involved in 14 out of 15 team goals and being able to be the reason why RSL is top of the standings absolutely gives you a great advantage in why he should be MVP. And also, I don't know that everybody recognizes the talent that RSL has. I think a lot of people have been sleeping on them, myself included a little bit, that they're surprising folks. So absolutely exciting to see and exciting to have had you on the show to be able to share about all the great things going on with Real Salt Lake and give us some insight on the team in this matchup. And so for everybody, we'll see who's going to be correct. Will it be 1-1, 2-2, 2-1? We'll find out Saturday night for that 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Subaru Park as the Union hosts RSL. And that'll do it for us here on PHOI Union Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys Monday for our live show at 2 p.m. And we'll be recapping all the excitement, hopefully a Union victory from this weekend. So for JP, our incredible guest, Hayden, make sure you give him a follow and check out all the work he's doing with the Royal Riot. And for myself, Renee, so long. Until next time here on PHOI Union Podcast.
Dude.